Hey everyone! Today I'm going to be talking about the Andrew Wakefield's 1998 study that claimed that there was a link between the MMR vaccine and autism. If you don't know what the MMR vaccine, it's just a vaccine that protects against measles, mumps, and rubella. And the Wakefield study ended up becoming one of the most famous examples of misinformation in modern medicine. So basically, this study caused a huge fear around vaccines, even though it was still later proven to be deeply flawed and even retracted completely. So in this video, I'm just going to be breaking down three main things: the study's methodology, the impact it had on public health, and the ethical issues surrounding the research and its publication. And honestly, this story is kind of wild because it shows how one bad study can cause a lot of real-world consequences. Because if you look on, like Reddit or some kind of like the weird side of Instagram, you'll see a lot of anti-vaxxers and like crazy conspiracy theorists who still think that vaccines genuinely cause autism and will refuse to vaccinate their kids. So first, let's talk about the study itself. In 1998, Andrew Wakefield and several colleagues published a paper in the medical journal The Lancet. In this paper, he suggested that the MMR vaccine might be connected to autism and other gastrointestinal problems in children. And now, at first glance, that sounds really serious. But when scientists started looking closer at the research, they realized that the methodology had some major problems. And the first issue was the sample size. The study only included 12 kids. 12. Like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And in scientific research, especially when you're studying something as complex as autism, that's just way too small of a group to draw any actual meaningful conclusions. Normally, studies like this would include hundreds or even thousands of participants, so 12 isn't really, any kind of like valuable data. And another problem was how the data was collected. Wakefield heavily relied on parents remembering when their child's symptoms of the autism started, but memory isn't really that reliable, especially when their parents are trying to recall things that happened months or even years ago. And this type of data collection introduces something called recall bias, which can seriously affect the accuracy of these results. And another major issue is that the study never actually proved causation that, vaccines cause autism. So Wakefield claimed that because some parents noticed behavioral changes around the same time that their kid got the vaccine has to be responsible for it, right? But in science, just because two things happen around the same time doesn't mean that one caused the other. Maybe it's correlated, doesn't mean that it caused it, right? So for example, autism symptoms, they usually start becoming noticeable around the same age that kids receive the vaccines. So the timing can overlap, even if there's no causal relationship between the two. And later investigations actually found that some of the kids' medical histories had been altered in the paper to make it seem like the symptoms appeared right after the vaccines, when that wasn't true at all. So overall, the study had a very small sample size. It relied on biased data, and it didn't actually prove what it was claiming to prove, which is not the gold standard of scientific research at all. It's quite the opposite. And also, even though the study had major flaws, it still got a lot of media attention. And you could see, if you open up, any comment section or subreddit about conspiracy theories, you could see that a lot of people still have this mindset, or they still believe that vaccines cause autism. The Wakefield held press conferences and would publicly suggest that the parents avoid the combined MMR vaccine, and suggested that they give the vaccine separately. And when parents hear something like that, especially whenever it comes to their kids and their health, they get a little overprotective, and, I can understand why they're scared. So because of this, the vaccine rates began to drop in several countries, especially in first world countries like the UK and the United States. And this is where herd immunity really becomes important. Herd immunity happens when enough people in a population are vaccinated, so a disease can't spread that easily because people have a built-up immune system against it. So when vaccination rates fall, so does that herd immunity. And unfortunately, that's exactly what happened here. After the Wakefield controversy, measles cases started increasing again in places where the disease has previously almost been eliminated completely. So imagine this deadly disease, right? Because measles isn't just a harmless childhood illness, you know? It can cause serious complications like pneumonia, brain inflammation, and even death. So imagine this deadly disease becoming almost, completely cured in a way. And then after this misinformation comes out, now we're seeing more cases of that deadly disease, which is super ironic because people are doing this to protect their kids, but really it's killing them, right? But researchers later conducted many large-scale studies involving hundreds of thousands of children to investigate the vaccine autism claim. And every single one of these studies found no evidence that the MMR vaccine causes autism. So scientifically speaking, that claim has completely been debunked. But the fear created by that original study still influences vaccine hesitancy today. And that just shows how powerful misinformation can be. Once one idea spreads, it's really hard to fully undo that damage. Now let's talk about the ethical side of the situation because it gets even more slimy. There were some investigations that later revealed that Andrew Wakefield had been a serious conflict of interest. He had been paid large amounts of money by lawyers who were planning lawsuits against these vaccine manufacturers. And this financial relationship was not properly disclosed when the study was published. Very slimy. And that's a huge problem in scientific research because, transparency about conflict of interest is extremely important. You don't want biased science. Another thing that's really concerning about this study was the medical procedures that were performed on these children that were in the study. So some of these kids underwent pretty invasive procedures like colonoscopies and lumbar punctures. Even though there was no clear justification for them, I guess they just did it, like the researchers I don't know why they did that to those poor kids. But these procedures raised a lot of major ethical concerns about the treatment and the safety of the kids. I'm so sorry guys, I woke up like 10 minutes ago. But 10 of Wakefield's co-authors actually withdrew their support for the studies after these issues became public. Then in 2010, the journal The Lancet officially retracted the paper. They were like, that study is just incorrect and the research has been done improperly. They did not want anything to do with it. And that same year, the UK's General Medical Council actually found Wakefield guilty of serious professional misconduct, and he lost his medical license completely. So basically, the scientific and medical communities concluded that that study was a sham. They shunned him. So here's some lessons for the science and public health that we can draw from this, okay? So first, it shows how important scientific integrity is. These researchers have a responsibility to collect accurate data, follow specific ethical guidelines, and be honest about your conflict of interest. Second, it shows how quickly misinformation can spread, especially when it involves emotional topics like children's health. And this specific topic is so sad to me because I bet a lot of these conspiracy theorists do actually care about their health and their children's health, but they're just not going about it in the right way. So for healthcare professionals, scientists, public health officials, this situation really emphasizes the importance of clear communication and correcting misinformation ASAP. So, to summarize all this mess again, Andrew Wakefield's 1998 study linked that the MMR vaccine caused autism. It had serious flaws and a lot of ethical violations, and it should not be taken seriously at all. The research only involved 12 kids, relied on biased data, and never demonstrated a causal relationship between the two. It just led to a lot of harmful misinformation in the media, decreased vaccination rates, and outbreaks of diseases like measles again. So, just so you know, today, overwhelming scientific evidence shows that the MMR vaccine is actually safe, and it does not, in fact, cause autism, okay? In fact, vaccines are one of the most effective tools we have for preventing infectious diseases and protecting public health. So get vaxxed, folks. I have all my vaccinations. I rarely ever get sick, and I'm pretty healthy. You don't see me with measles out here. And honestly, if there's one thing that you can take away from this whole situation, it's that good science definitely matters. it's just really sad because, yeah, they care about their health. You know, these anti-vaxxers do care about their health and their children's health. And they hear this, you know, research study, misinformation, and they get scared and end up not vaccinating their kids, which can kill them. So, kind of ironic. Just make sure to do your due diligence and fact check where you get your information from. Make sure to listen to thoroughly checked, ethical, and peer-reviewed research. Try not to listen to these conspiracy theorists or social media influencers as your main source of info. Media literacy matters because, you know, the public trust in medicine depends on it. So, be safe out there, y'all. Thank you for listening if you watched this all the way through.